So for our early stage startups, when you're very early, just getting going, what are the most critical HR or people strategies to think about? Sort of hiring, systems, benefits, equity structure. Ali, we'll let you begin.
What are the most important things to think about with respect to HR when you start a startup? It's definitely not benefits and all those things. Obviously, in the beginning, that's not the most important thing you can do. My experience is in the very beginning stages of a startup, this is when you don't have a lot of resources, that you're making a very few, with respect to hiring, you're making very few bets, and you have to make sure that they pay off and that you're getting the greatest people with the least amount of effort in the shortest amount of time. And so it's crucial that you hire the people at that time that will define the culture of your company going forward, both the culture of how you work and the sort of technologies and innovation culture that you build, but also the social culture and kind of the atmosphere and feeling of your company. And so I think the most important thing that I learned in the beginning of starting Well.ca is that I spent much more time talking to people about the stuff that they cared about. What kind of workplace would they like to work in? What are the things they value in a manager and in coworkers? Because that first seed of the first maybe 3 to 10 people that I hired, you can still feel the impact, even though all of them aren't here. You can still feel the impact of those people on our company today, just because the culture continues to expand, and then as we hire people, they learn from those people. So for me, the most important thing in the very first hires is make sure that you're really hiring to define your culture at that time, if that makes sense.
Good. Thanks. Rebecca?
Okay. So I would echo Ali's comments in saying that recruitment and bringing the right people on board initially is super important. Obviously that comes with a lot of other things, such as how do you compensate these people? Do you have the money in the bank to pay them? What kind of roles are you looking at? So how far is your product along already? Is it at the point where you still need to develop and it's just more so a concept, or is it your product is ready to go and now you need to sell it, and so you need a really great salesperson? So I think when it comes to bringing people on board and thinking about it, it's what is their return on investment for the organization, because you are investing very early in a resource and relying on that person, and not only are they a technical resource for you, but also you're spending money hopefully very wisely at that point. And obviously, like Ali said, when it comes to culture and finding the right fit for the organization, the early people definitely do define the organization and that culture. So you really, sometimes I think it's good for the founders and people to really sit down and think about what's important to them and what they really are looking for out of the culture that they want to breed, and look for people who are willing to, to support that and help breed that moving forward.
Excellent.
Okay. I agree with the comments that were made, and I'll just follow up on that. Definitely understand the culture that you want to create going forward from day one, if you can. Your culture is going to probably continue to evolve over time, but what you want to do is try to establish the culture you see in the future, and then hire the people that are just as passionate about you or your company and your product as you are. And you'll be able to feel that throughout the organization, and then you'll continue to hire people like that. So develop a culture that you believe in, and you hire people that believe the same thing. And another thing is develop a recruitment strategy. Understand the people that you want and develop questions that will flush some of that out when you are hiring the right people. So echoing what they said, but yeah, it's definitely develop the culture that you want and a strong recruitment strategy.
And I guess on that same topic, how do you know when to hire? When is the problem, or the opportunity big enough to bring people on board?
I would say you would want to start hiring when there's not enough hours in the day to complete what you're doing. When you're not able to meet some of the customers' needs and requirements, and maybe your customers are upset and you're losing orders because of it. So you might need to look at additional resources to match the requirements that are coming in from your customers.
And I would say it depends on your corporate goals, so what you really want to achieve in the short term and then long term, what your growth strategy looks like for the organization, and so as a result, you'll know where you need to hire. So like I mentioned before, whether your product is ready to hit the market and you just need someone to go out there and promote it, so whether your product is a B2B or a B2C product, and you need to know how to get the word out. So one of the things that I found with startups is they're so busy developing the product or selling the product that they often don't get a lot of word out to the local community in terms of who they are, and really create that brand and have the community really supporting them in their initiatives and their products. So in terms of timing, I think it depends on where you're at with your product development, just really thinking about what's critical to you at that time and where you want to go in the next 6 months, because that should really define who to hire and when to hire.